Hey everyone, welcome back. I am so thrilled to have you here today. Let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're putting on our analytical hats and looking at a classic piece of literature, a really beautiful fable known as The Rabbit's Carrot and the Power of Friendship. Now, on the surface, fables like this often seem like simple, cozy little tales meant for kids before bedtime. But when we look a bit closer, when we really break down the nuts and bolts of the narrative, we actually find these incredibly rich layers of strategy, morality, and even human psychology. And that is exactly what we're going to unpack today.
So, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the inciting carrot theft, move on to the archetypes of true friendship, break down the anatomy of the chase, look at the villain's downfall, and wrap up with the power of forgiveness.
All right, let's get into it with part 1, the inciting carrot theft.
Okay, so every great narrative needs a catalyst, right? A specific moment that completely shatters the status quo. Our story opens on this serene, beautiful jungle morning. The setting is peaceful, perfect, and totally unguarded. And this is just a brilliant illustration of the author's mastery of contrast. On one hand, we have Chiku, our innocent little rabbit, happily gathering his carrots. He represents pure, untouched contentment. But then, bam! In an absolute flash, a cunning fox swoops in, snatches his hard work, and leaves poor Chiku devastated and crying. The transition from absolute joy to sudden loss is practically instantaneous. The author doesn't waste a single breath here. The core conflict is established right out of the gate, locking us in from the very first lines.
Now, I want you to pause and just reflect on your own lives for a second. Think about it. How do you react when your proverbial carrots are stolen? When something you've worked incredibly hard for is just unfairly taken away. It's so easy to feel completely helpless, exactly like Chiku. But this is where the narrative drops in its most crucial element for forward momentum. Enter Motu, the brave little elephant. Motu witnesses this total injustice, and he doesn't just offer an empty, "Oh, I'm so sorry." No, he offers immediate, actionable help. Motu is literally the engine that shifts this entire story from a sad tragedy into a high-stakes, heroic quest.
That brings us nicely to Section 2, Archetypes of True Friendship.
We're going to shift our perspective a bit here. Instead of just viewing these characters as, cute talking animals, we really need to analyze them as highly specialized literary archetypes. It's actually fascinating. We've got Chiku the rabbit, who acts as the innocent. He's the moral center, the whole reason this mission even exists. Then there's Motu the elephant, acting as the heavy support or vanguard. He brings the raw courage and the physical presence. But, brute force isn't always enough to catch a sneaky fox, right? So the narrative brilliantly layers in the monkey for terrain navigation, clearing out the physical path ahead, and the parrot for aerial reconnaissance, tracking the target from up in the sky. Each animal brings a highly specific, totally indispensable tactical advantage to the quest. It's honestly like watching a perfectly balanced heist movie crew, just working in reverse to get the goods back. And this highly coordinated teamwork directly feeds into the very first core theme derived from the story's final lesson, true friendship. True friendship isn't just about sharing the good times on a beautiful sunny morning. It is the fundamental moral premise of providing active, complementary support when everything falls apart. It's about standing shoulder to shoulder with someone when the going gets tough. That tactical team breakdown we just looked at, that is the philosophical framework of the fable in action.
Let's move on to Section 3, Anatomy of the Chase.
With our tactical team fully assembled, the story really accelerates, and the action sequence hits its absolute peak energy. We are looking at a masterclass in teamwork here. What is basically a single sentence in the source material translates into this wildly dynamic, coordinated action sequence. First, the ground pursuit is kicked off by Motu and Chiku. Next, mid-level obstacles are completely neutralized by the monkeys swinging through the trees, optimizing their travel speed. And finally, high-level tracking is provided by the parrot, calling out coordinates from above. The pacing of the story just matches this escalating energy flawlessly. The heroes aren't just running after the fox, they are outmaneuvering her on literally every single spatial plane: the ground, the trees, and the sky.
Which leads us straight into Section 4, the villain's downfall. So how does this high-speed 3D pursuit actually end? Interestingly enough, it isn't the brute force of the elephant or the lightning speed of the monkey that physically takes down the fox. It is the environment itself. The cunning fox slips near a large rock, completely fumbling and dropping the basket. The sheer, unrelenting pressure of the coordinated chase actually forces her into making an unforced error. This is the pivotal turning point of the text, where the stolen goods suddenly become vulnerable, and the villain's momentum is entirely halted by just one simple misstep. And that brings us to a very methodical, three-step conflict resolution. First up, restorative action. Motu secures the carrots and gives them right back to Chiku. Second, we have internal realization. The fox recognizes her error and feels genuine shame. And I want to highlight this. This is vital. She isn't just sorry she got caught by a giant elephant. She is actually ashamed of the act of stealing itself. And third, the explicit vow. She apologizes and promises never to snatch anyone's rights again. So, the physical conflict is over, for sure, but it paves the way for a much deeper, internal moral resolution.
And finally, Section 5, the power of forgiveness. That moral resolution takes us to the true emotional peak of the concluding scene. I actually want to read this quote directly from the text. If you repent from the heart, anyone can change. Take a second to really absorb the deep moral weight of that statement. Chiku, who is the victim of the theft, holds all the power in this moment. He could easily demand punishment, but instead, he chooses restorative justice. He validates the fox's shame and graciously offers her a pathway right back into the community.
So, the crucial takeaway here is this concept of forgiveness. It is the second core theme from the text's final lesson, and Chiku's reaction exemplifies it just perfectly. You see, forgiveness here is not portrayed as a weakness or as backing down. It is a massively powerful act of pardoning that actually improves the wrongdoer and restores balance to the world. By forgiving the fox, Chiku completely breaks the cycle of animosity. And the result of that forgiveness is this incredibly picturesque, beautiful resolution. Just look at what happens next. All the animals, including the fox, joyfully eat carrots together. Laughter and happiness return to the jungle. The community is whole again. It elegantly demonstrates the ultimate triumph of forgiveness over punishment. Think about it. Punishment might have just driven the fox away, creating a bitter, lifelong enemy. But forgiveness? Forgiveness turned a thief into a fellow community member.
As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a lingering, kind of philosophical thought. Would the fox have actually learned her lesson if she hadn't tripped over that rock? Was it the external consequence of falling down, or was it the internal realization of shame and Chiku's subsequent grace that truly transformed her? What do you think is the true catalyst for change, not just in stories, but in our own lives? It's a pretty fascinating question to ponder. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into narrative and friendship. Keep learning, keep asking those big questions, and I will absolutely see you in the next explainer.